Hello, and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And here on the Warp Shelf, we are two artists reaching into the pile of movies, games, TV shows.
And we talk about what's worth taking with you. Now, sometimes that can be physically, and sometimes, especially in today's episode, unless they release it later, it can just be whether it's worth taking with you in your heart.
I feel like Star Wars is the ultimate merchandising company. How are they not going to sell this as a Blu-ray, at least? You know, like, they've done it for so many of the other Disney Plus shows, and you're always kind of like, you see them at Walmart and you're like, I ain't buying that. So it's one of those things that you got to ask the question, is Obi-Wan worth owning? Even if it's not exactly you own it, more like sign up for Disney Plus to watch Kenobi or something like that, you know, like, which, you know, if you're watching this show, you're probably signed up for Disney Plus already. But,
and to be fair, that's kind of the mentality going into any streaming exclusive show.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't even have to be just Disney Plus.
It just has to be like, are you paying the admission to get in? That's what we're really after, really, right? Is like, are you paying the admission to own or see this thing? And we're talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series that was literally the first thing that Disney announced that they were going to do once they bought the Star Wars franchise. They were like, we're going to do
Lucasfilm in general.
Yeah, when they bought Lucasfilms, the first thing they said, and I remember this I remember they were like, we're going to do single movies, and one of them will be Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, like, and they were like, and they were like, talked about that a lot. And like, so it's been a long time coming to this point of like actually getting the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. And I think that will inform some of what we have to say today, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're just trying to copy Mando. And you have to wonder if this script came first and then Mando was like, oh yes, but we could do that, you know, like you have to wonder which came first, because
it was very clearly a movie first, and then like Solo didn't do too well, but Mando was doing really well, so they're just like, miniseries.
Miniseries, all right. And they've been promoting it like it was a movie. I mean, I've seen ads on the side of the highway. I've gotten Facebook ads, you know, like I've gotten, you know, like they promoting this like a movie.
They keep using the word event a lot, just like the 6-episode event
series. And I will say that right off the bat, I like that this is an event series. I like that this is just this, and it's done, and we're over. We're not like leading into Obi-Wan season 2, and he's somehow doing other shit for another 10 years instead of protecting Luke. You're like, nah, and getting slightly crazy due to the heat. You're like, come on, let's like, we got to get back to that point, you know, like if you're going to interrupt Obi-Wan, you have to at least get back to that point where he can kind of go crazy in the desert. You know?
Because just the mere conceit of this was already sort of like stretching.
Yes. I mean, I can say that's definitely one of the things that I've seen a lot of anger about, is that like people are like, they're like, this is really stretching it, you know, like this is not, you know, like this isn't, you know, like this didn't have to happen. And you're like, yeah, but it's cool as fuck, bro. So like, calm the shit down, you know?
I find it no more egregious than the other stretches. Like Yoda's my teacher. Okay, Qui-Gon's my teacher. Yoda's technically just kind of like the homeroom teacher, just teaches all the younglings.
Yeah, and like, and if they had to do, I mean, we're already talking like so much, but like if they had to do a season 2, maybe Obi-Wan and Yoda like meeting up to do something, you know, and then he can be like, I learned from Yoda, you know, like, but like that's not worth doing. Anyways, I think we should just stop this and just have this as
I just want a season 2 where Obi-Wan helps that Death Sticks guy go through a 12-step program. I just want it to be about a journey, about a recovery.
So we want to go episode by episode of this, but my overall feelings, right off the get-go, is that this is a show with Ewan McGregor in it. He's beautiful the entire time. What more do you want? What more do you want? He's gorgeous. Like he's just Obi-Wan already, like right off the bat. And it's so beautiful to see him back in the role. That like, you know, the only reason why the prequels I feel are absolutely like redeemable in some way is because of Ewan McGregor, you know, like he fucking
at least on their own
saves
merit, as opposed to all the other stuff about the prequels that helps hold it up retroactively.
Yes, exactly. Even this, which is like, hey, we're gonna put in some stuff that's like Clone Wars stuff, and you're like, really? Like,
yeah, I think like in short, before we like get into it,
yeah,
my thoughts on the series is that it's solid.
It's solid.
It's like just above a mixed bag, because like we talked about, like even though we liked Book of Boba Fett, that was very like spotty,
and up and down and up and down. This is
here
more
for me. It's like a step above that, not a huge step above that, but because I have my issues. But yeah, it works.
I definitely have issues, but they're definitely in the first half. Is what I would say. Is that the first half kind of it doesn't have a pacing problem because it moves well enough and it's like doing enough things, but it's one of those things where you can kind of tell it's offshoot stuff, and you're like, all right, we know what we're here for. We're here for Anakin, you know, like let's get to you know, Darth and Obi. Let's really fucking like, but they're building it up the whole time, so it doesn't, you know, like it doesn't feel like it's unsalted or unsettled land, you know, like that they're going into. But it's definitely one of those things that I think the first couple episodes, the 1, 2, and 3, will have some people being like, good, you know, like they'll be like, okay, you know, like that was fun. But then I think 4, 5, and 6 are where it's like, it's that drawing where they're like, the first 3 episodes is the nice horse, but the second half is like the fucking on fire drawing. Horse. Yeah. Like, okay. No, like it's like, yeah, actually like excellent, because like I loved the final episodes of this. I thought this was a lot of fun at the end, and really it makes you be like, okay, this is why Disney paid so much fucking money, and why they're gonna make that money back at all times. You know, like you're like, there it
I
is.
really liked 5 and 6. I wasn't huge on 4, but I think it's sort of like a necessary bridge.
I liked it because of course, they had an underwater base. I was like, that was awesome. I was like, it also reminded me of my favorite episode of The Bad Batch, the last season, where they were kind of stuck in Geonosis and underwater and everything. And I was like, oh, cool. We get like kind of Camino. Sorry. Fuck. But yes, Camino, and yeah, right, wrong planet. But sorry, I've been thrown off by saying the wrong planet. I'm sorry about that. But I really liked the underwater episode, and I thought that like I liked the sneaking around the base, you know, like because you only got a little bit of Obi-Wan. Like he lands on the ship and immediately just squares up with Darth, you know, like it's not like, you know, he sneaks around for a little bit, but it's like very, very much like on site. And, you know, like that's, it's cool to see Obi like in his element doing it, you know, like, which it's also a call back to episode 1 of him sneaking around on the Federation ships. And it's also a callback to them sneaking around on Revenge of the Sith, the big Imperial ship, and you're just like, I mean, not Imperial ship, droid ship, and you're just like, damn.
They weren't really sneaking around on that ship in episode 3.
No, not really.
Kind of trucking forward. There was like the stealth in episode 1, just because, you know, this was supposed to be This was supposed to be for negotiations, and now we have to get the hell out of here.
Now we gotta get the fuck out of here. But basically, I want to say my like personal connection to this. Like, not only do I love Ewan McGregor, and of course I liked the prequels, even like, you know, like, but I like hate 2, and you know, 1 is kind of mostly useless, and 3's a Three's a good time. But like,
Yeah, flawed, but it's the most watchable.
It's most watchable. And 2 is really just bad dialogue wise, and what George was like making these poor kids do. You're like, no, this could have been way cooler, George. And George is like, no, I got a vision. And you're like, please, George, don't hurt us anymore. But what I do love, though, what I grew up reading and loving was Obi-Wan and Anakin books that they had out, which was like Master and Padawan. They were just like running around.
Yeah, Master and Apprentice.
Master and Apprentice. I loved those books as a kid. I really loved that, like, that total fun. And I know Disney doesn't care if that existed, but it's one of my important, like, memories, you know, like, of loving those books. And of course there was books where it was Qui-Gon and Obi. And so Obi-Wan's like absolutely is my favorite character in that Star Wars, you know, like, of course I love Luke and Anakin, but like Obi-Wan's probably my favorite character, you know, like he's somehow the main character, you know, all the time. Mm-hmm. And now he actually gets to like be the main character here, which like,
whereas like,
go ahead,
whether or not Disney cares about the canon of
right.
like the old material, you'll find that comes up a lot when people talk about their favorite Star Wars books and like what the best Star Wars books are. You usually see like Master and Apprentice, the Thrawn trilogy, a lot of the Old Republic books.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And it's like those Jedi adventures, and that's really what I think is so fun about this show, is that this is the first Disney Plus show that is other than, you know, the Clone Wars and Rebels was made somewhere else, but you know, like it's like the only Jedi adventure that we've had at Disney Plus, at live action wise, at least, you know, like, and
that's like squarely focused on a Jedi as the main character, because we haven't gotten Ahsoka yet.
Yeah. And it's kind of one of those things that that's why I like this show, is that fine. Like people have been complaining that there hasn't been any Jedi or any lightsabers. And then you finally get a show where they're fucking the whole time and people are complaining, you know, like, and you're like, all right, come on. You're like, and I know they play it up that like Obi-Wan doesn't want to break out the lightsaber, you know, and I kind of like that, you know, I kind of like that.
Yeah. There's some semblance of restraint, because despite it being focused on a Jedi, they do get around that, like, oh, he's been out of the game for a while. He's got to get his groove back. So he doesn't actually use the lightsaber as much as you would think he would, even when he's like, oh, all right, I'm back in shape.
Yeah, right. I'm doing it again. But there's like so much, there's a lot to love in this series, really, you know, like, is really it. I think that there's definitely some frustration. I can feel that from like the general like rabble that everyone talks about, you know, this show. But really, I don't know how you complain about episode 5 and 6. I don't know how you I know a lot of people were like, well, I stopped watching. You're like, well, 5 and 6 are absolutely worth it. Like, even if you're, you know, you're like, I don't care, just skip to 5 and 6, have a good time. You know, like, is basically, I mean, I think the whole series is worth it, but I'm saying that like episode 5 and 6 are the absolute game, you know, that's what you're here for, you know, like, and they really deliver on it. I actually think they really deliver well on not only a fun lightsaber duels, but extremely well lit lightsaber duels. I think these are some of the best lit lightsaber fights we've had, other than maybe The Last Jedi with the lighting they do there. But like, I think that the lighting here and the way it glows off everyone's face is so cool, and it adds such an awesome look to this whole series.
I think it helps that, like, ever since, I want to say probably since Mandalorian season 2, I can tell that they're using like either straight up what the merchandise is, or just some like version of it that's a little more durable, the like force effects lightsabers, so they actually can have the lightsaber be a light source on top of that. Yeah,
and you've seen the behind the scenes where it's a physical blade now, you know, like it's like, you know, and it's a physical blade and it lights up. And I think that's the real importance. A literal like all it's like, you know, all the lightsaber fights before, they had to digitally add that color or like send the color off screen, but to actually have the light be and I think I'm using it right this time, Deshaun, I didn't fuck it up, diegetic. It's like actually in the shot, and it's like coming onto the person. It's like no, there's a better word for it, not diegetic, it's a practical, it's actually in the shot, you know, like, and I think that them using actual practical lights in the sabers make this one of the best looking lightsaber fighting series in the entire fucking franchise.
There is a give and take with it, because especially with the prequels, and they just kind of had like very lightweight rods, so it could be kind of weightless, and it's like, they can move a little faster. When they actually have something that has some weight to them, you could tell that there's some weight to them, and they can't move as like gracefully as they used to. And you
I
also
don't know.
run
I
into
think that's what
straight up
this
problems where they just don't edit it in wide shots, and I could tell that it's the prop. Like that was, I've seen Mando season 2 a couple times now, and I can tell in like the far off shots, I'm like, I can see the prop that you guys didn't bother to put the effect on.
Yeah, you're like, wait a minute, you didn't
like I can see the plastic rod.
And I mean, in this, I don't think it says any mistakes though. Are you saying there's any mistakes in this, like for lightsabers or anything? Or
no, not necessarily here. It was more so like in Mando season 2, both with Luke and Ahsoka, where I'm just like, I can see that that's a rod.
Yes, I see what you mean. I do think though, I'll give another credit to the series effects wise, and everyone's going to be talking about this, how good the de-aging they did on the flashback scene with Ewan and Hayden Christensen. I think that actually looks pretty fucking good. I don't know. What do you think? Decent.
I think
it looks better than Luke. I think it obviously looks better than Luke.
It was easier with Ewan McGregor, because Ewan McGregor just hasn't aged.
Yeah,
but
what is
like
he, a
with
vampire,
young Anakin,
man?
I'm like,
what is that?
I can still see like your crow's feet, my dude. Like you,
I know,
look
a little
10
bit,
years older.
a little bit. But I kind of like that, like end of war Anakin look, and they could keep playing with that.
End of war, because that's clearly episode 2 Anakin.
Are you sure? Because I was trying to.
He's got the stupid Padawan ponytail.
He does. I was thinking it was like right. It was after. It's obviously after 2, so it's like after 2 and before
after
3.
2, but like in the midst, like before the Clone Wars, like really gets going. But that's clearly like Padawan.
Yeah,
Anakin still.
True. And I mean, I think it was a lot of fun to have Hayden Christensen back in this. I know a lot of people, even me, I hate, used to hate on Hayden Christensen. And it's like, I don't think it's his fault, obviously. It's like, like he was brought in to play Darth Vader. And when it comes to Darth Vader time, he plays Darth Vader well, like it's just, it's hard to play what George was going for before that, like.
Yeah, I think the only issue I had with them having Hayden be in the suit so much is that I could tell when they were filming around it, because Hayden's not as tall as like Darth Vader generally is. So I can tell it's just like, okay, you're probably standing on something here. I can see how you're trying to like mess with the perspective a little bit, and also in wide shots, you're just like, you're not that tall.
I wanted to point that out, cinematography wise, for this entire show, but especially in episode 5, when the Grand Inquisitor comes back. I mean, guys, sorry, guys, fucking spoiler alert. I guess we haven't said that already, but spoiler alert now. We're gonna talk spoilers because fuck it. You got our general thoughts.
Is
Come
it really
back
a spoiler when he has to be alive for Rebels?
Yeah, right. I was thinking that too. Everyone was so pissy about that dude. I know I'm in a shit posting groups and like I see the worst of the fans, but like, I also was talking to people online and like in a couple of the streams I was doing, and like people were pissed that the Grand Inquisitor like died in the first episode because they were like, they're breaking continuity, and I'm like obviously they're not. They fucking love Rebels. They have merchandise of Rebels that's like. It's on Disney Plus. They're not acknowledging Rebels.
Kind of like they even, to be honest, kind of ape some visual motifs from Rebels in the last fight. You're like,
oh yeah,
it's very much just like, can I copy your homework?
Yeah, yo, Dave, that shit was fire. Let's take that, like, I mean, yeah, kind of with the rock throwing too. That feels very Dave Filoni, like
Even the
that.
way the helmet came off and like, you got the one exposed eye and everything,
Yes,
and they have a
that
very
was-
similar conversation. I was like, all right, guys.
You're like, Anakin, are you just being depressed all over? I mean, I think the revealing of Anakin there was really great because you got to see. Well, that's the great thing about this series. And one of the things that instead of doing a fucking other Obi-Wan season, give me Darth Vader at the height of his reign just fucking up Jedi with Starkiller in the background.
That's basically what that's basically what the comic is.
Right? Like, give me that because, the comic is fantastic. I think that we could get, just give me the Hayden Christensen running around as Darth Vader show, being badass as fuck, and I want that. Because really, on live action, we have not seen a lot of Darth Vader at full fucking power, just ripping shit apart. Like, not fight, at the end going light on Luke, or getting taken down by Palpatine. It's like, this is literally Vader at full power, and we don't get that in live action. We got it in comics, we've got it in animation, but we don't get it.
I kind of like that because less is more sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I would also kill for a show where he's just like
easy for
the commander.
That kind of novelty to wear off.
Yeah,
because I've already heard the argument that we've already had too much Darth Vader in the Disney era.
You're like, I mean, that's a bad argument, guys. I mean, think about it. Like, he's got so little screen time in the Disney era. It's so stupidly low. But whatever. Bad arguments are bad arguments, bad faith arguments, and all that. But I would go for that though. I would definitely go for that because it's really fun to see him fucking rip a fucking ship apart with just the Force and then like throw people around and then just be brutal, like straight up this was more brutal than fucking Boba Fett. Like until Mando showed up, there wasn't much blood in Boba Fett, and then you throw Mando chopping people in half and you're like, okay, and this was just like, nope, we're gonna go full like killing people, maiming people like the whole fucking time, and you're like, okay. The only thing that I think they held back on, and it was a real like, you're like pussies, was them fake hanging that Jedi in the first episode where like he wasn't hung like he was like actually like
he was like hung like he was from a harness as opposed to from the neck.
They threw him in it or something like that. It was like, guys, this is obviously a censorship thing. You're like, what happened?
Yeah, and if you want to censor it, fine, but there are ways to still make it look better than what you did. You could have had him hanging from his wrist. You could have just
seen the feet. The wrist thing could have worked. You could have only seen his feet. That would have gotten the thing across. Like, come on.
Like, for me, it was that, and like Obi-Wan not sustaining way worse burns than he should have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, this is the one thing about the Disney era that I will say, there's two things. There's, of course, the overuse of protecting little creatures' lives. And then two is Bacta tanks can save anything. It doesn't matter. Throw them in a Bacta tank. They're fine.
No, the Bacta tank wasn't my problem. He just should have been burned a lot worse when he was fucking literally. It was one thing if they kept him close to the fire, because if you're close enough to that sort of heat, you're gonna get burned.
Yeah.
But he gets full fucking plunged into chemical flames, and all he has is maybe some first degree burns on the side of his head, and that's it. You're like, you would be crispy, my dude.
Crispy. Maybe he was pushing out with the Force and just keeping the flames pushed out from him.
Oh, that's always the greatest excuse. Just it was the will of the Force that he didn't get those burns.
No. He used the Force.
Force. It was implied somewhere.
Somewhere it's implied. Not at all, but implied. But they used to do that in the books, where they used to be like, I didn't get hurt because of small movements of the Force, because they were able to explain that in a book. And they of course do that in the what's the book that's not Palpatine, but have you heard the tale of
Plagueis.
Plagueis? The Plagueis book. They do a lot of like small Force things in that book, and I kind of miss that in a lot of Star Wars media, you know, like his little Force things, you know, like, and I think that's why I had so much fun with Star Wars Visions, that they were just kind of like little Force things or big Force things, you know, like you're like, all right, which I'm excited for season 2 of that. You're like, hell yeah. But I wanted to say cinematography wise, it's really strange how many low angle shots, especially in episode 4, there is. I don't know if you noticed. It's like constant how low the camera is to the ground. And I know they're going for something there, but it's like, it's definitely one of those things that you're like, there's a lot of episodes where you're like, oh, they are so close to the ground and doing a wide shot. You're like, which is really cool for some shots, you know, like, it's like really, it like shows off the scale of what's going on, you know, like,
Yeah.
But then also there's moments where you're like, okay, another shot where we're on the ground. All right. You know, like, you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
I would feel that whenever it was very clearly Hayden in the Vader suit, because he's not as tall as Vader normally is.
Yes.
Which, that's been his thing as far back as episode 3, where like that scene where, you know, Vader first gets his suit and he walks out, like Hayden could barely see like through he couldn't even see through the eyes of the helmet.
Yeah, right.
His eyes were like coming through the mouth.
You're like, wait a minute. So the director Deborah Chow did all 6 episodes here, which is really interesting for a Disney Plus show, because Disney Plus is like, no, this is TV. I will take that away from you. Everyone else can direct. You know, we're going to save money. We're going to get each of you signed up instead of a big thing for like one director. And so that they gave all 6 episodes to her is pretty crazy, especially because and she's been doing great jobs at like one episode on a lot of different shows. But that's the thing. It's been like one episode on a lot of shows, like Mr. Robot, Turn, Iron Fist, Fear the Walking Dead, Jessica Jones, Better Call Saul, the Man in the High Castle, and then the last 2 projects was American Gods, The Mandalorian, Red Hot Chili Peppers music video, and Obi-Wan. Just like, you're like, all right, you know, do what you got to do when you know, got that Disney money, I guess. But it's like, did two Mandalorian episodes and then gets this whole entire series to herself, which is very interesting, I think. And I enjoy how purposeful she is the whole time, but I do think there's moments where this show looks a little TV more than it should. There's definitely moments where it's kind of very high key lit, like it's in a studio, and I think that it gives it it's only some scenes, like it's very cinematic otherwise, but there's definitely some scenes where you're like, oh, that was a little. I
felt that in the initial Vader confrontation, when Obi first sees Vader and then he initially runs away and goes around the corner and Vader's waiting for him around the corner. It's just like, that's the same area. I can see that same like mound that you just ran by before. You guys really have limited space and you're trying to work around it.
Yeah, right. You're like, hey, you made it. I mean, you made it work. But that was kind of funny though. It was just kind of like, Obi-Wan just like, oh no, fuck that. Nope, it runs away. You're like, all right. You know, like, I ain't gonna front. That's it. You know, that's very Obi-Wan. It's just like, all right, nope. Like, I ain't doing that. I'm out. But I think that it's really cool that we have such a consistent director on this, and I hope we get to see that more in future projects. I want to see these kind of like one visioned director series instead of these like multi-conglomerate like kind of like wavy series where it's like, oh, somebody else is directing this episode. Robert Rodriguez is directing this episode. Oh, somebody else is directing this episode.
Yeah.
You know, like you're like,
I think
whoa.
it's easier when it's a miniseries because the production's not too dissimilar from a movie to have like one director.
Exactly. But I mean, we can go episode by episode. I've been kind of like, I kind of like this like taking the complaints thing and like talking about it because I think a lot of people also complained about Leia. What did you feel about Leia? Because I know you also hate children.
I don't hate children. Children are individuals, not a collective. So just like people, some can be nice to be around with, and some can be really fucking annoying.
Weird. They are people.
Just like people.
They are people.
So, but generally speaking, I'm not kid averse entirely, but I'm also not a kids guy.
Yeah, and I worked at a daycare through high school, and I love.
I would put a gun in my mouth. So like going in.
What did you think of Leia though?
I liked her. She
Yeah?
was cute. I think the actress did a good job, which is tough. And it's not me just going easy just because they're just like, oh man, we really bullied Jake Lloyd, huh?
Yeah, right.
Like, I do think she's genuinely good in this. And it's like, fuck, every single time I think I'm gonna hate it just because ever since Mando, we just want to do the dad thing.
Yeah,
just like
it's a little
gotta take care of some
fantasy.
child. Gotta take care of the child. And every time I think it's like, okay, I'm starting to get so sick of this, I'm not gonna like this again. You're just like, damn it. Okay. I like Omega. I like young Leia.
I worry about Disney's like stepdadness that's going on where they're like making stepdad fantasy stuff where they're like, like it may not be my kid, but yeah, I am his papa, like, they started,
He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy.
Exactly. It's like, it definitely works. I think there's a great like emotional pull there that can happen, like I think they understand it works, and that's the problem. Is obviously they're shoving in a lot of things. I think we should be worried if like what's the next series that's coming up? The Andor. If that one has another plot where they're protecting a kid, I think then we should be worried. I think we've hit the like limit of like how many ones we can, especially because this one makes sense. And I want to talk about that because a lot of people have been is that first off, I love Leia. I thought she's fighting a lot of haters, but I think she immediately looks like, Carrie Fisher, and is, it's not just the costume that she's wearing that makes her Leia, obviously. And I think it also is a lot of good writing here where, I think they've kind of understood what they kind of have to do, like they kind of have to, like to make this not obnoxious,
which is a tough balancing act.
It is. And like even as I love kids, it's like I still think that a lot of media where it's, I mean, of course I point to like Iron Man 3 where I'm like, why did we do this? But like you're like it, but and all the like, why are we bringing back the Santa Claus dude? Why are we getting a Santa Claus TV show? I saw that image the other day. I'm like, why are we supporting Tim Allen? I thought we were taking him out. I thought that was the point of Lightyear, is they were like, we don't need Tim Allen.
I guess he's just still a viable property for dads, I guess.
More stepdad porn. It's weird, dude. It's weird. I gotta say, as a guy who's had a stepdad, you're like, no, I don't like this. Like, this is very strange. But I do think that Leia's really good here, and I think that the plot makes sense. Is what I'm saying. Is that we knew that somehow. Leia knew Obi-Wan, and knew Obi-Wan would come to help, and almost immediately. And we knew that, that Obi-Wan was looking after Luke, but, why I mean, you have to ask the question, why did he just only protect Luke when Leia's out there? So I like this story of like,
Yeah.
no, he wasn't an asshole. He just like he was protecting Luke and then had this mission to save Leia and was like, okay.
Although I do think even if they hadn't explained it, I think it goes well enough to be like, well, Luke's on just a dusty rock, whereas like Leia is royalty, so I think she'll be fine.
Yeah, I think she'll be good. But I kind of like this because it's like a plot that makes it fits into this little slot, you know, like really well. I think that it's like there's not many plots that can fit in this slot, and they somehow fit it in here. I like that we get Alderaan pre-blown up. I think that's a fun part of this show.
We only got like a little glimpse at it at the end of episode 3.
Right, and you're just like, wait, hold on, I want a little bit more, because it's like an obvious tragedy. It's a genocide, you know, like it's like one of those things that I don't know if Star Wars plays up its genocide as much as it probably should. You know, like they're like, yeah, we destroyed a planet. You're like, oh my god. you're like that's
it literally like doesn't even affect Leia like pretty much after it happens. Like during the moment it's sad, and then after that we kind of just never bring it up again.
And you're like, that was your entire people and a way of life just gone. And you're just like, no, it's okay.
It's not even like the sequel trilogy. We're just like, God, a planet killer. We have a bunch of those. We're used to it. This like set the precedent.
Right? You're like, what the fuck? I do appreciate this movie for not bringing up this show for not bringing up the Death Star at all, by the way. It could have like name dropped the Death Star at some point, especially at the end when they bring back Palpatine for it, like somehow Palpatine returns. But like when they bring him back, they could have been like, all right, report to the Death Star, you know, like or report to building the Death Star, you know, like they literally could have just done that. And I probably would have been fine with it, but I like the restraint. Good job, Disney.
That's that's the one I hear even more often than the Vader one. It's just like, enough with the fucking Death Star.
Yeah, you're like, okay, all right.
Stop.
We did Rogue One. Like, let's calm down after that.
Like Rogue One, like, it's fine. You want to do the ruins of like of the second one in Rise of Skywalker? Sure. That made for just a cool environment and a cool set piece. But like the Death Star cannons on the Star Destroyers are just like, okay. There's a power creep, and then there's like a power fucking plummet.
I mean, yeah, definitely. There's a power creep, and it's like, and I think, you know, there's shows like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Super that are able to handle their power creep, you know, like you're like, oh, they're able to like amp it up without it feeling like we broke everything. But I think Rise of Skywalker kind of breaks everything, and you're just kind of like,
yeah, like people complain about like the light speed thing in Last Jedi breaking everything.
Yeah,
but, like that doesn't bother me. But like normal ass Star Destroyers having planet killing weapons, like every single one of them, not even like, oh, that's the Dreadnought, that's the only one with a cannon. Every one of them has one.
You're like, oh, okay, like okay. In which it's funny, they have some like offshoot Gundam stuff where they're like, what if like the Xeon had manufactured like all these planet killing weapons, if they actually mass produce the right things, and if fascism didn't fuck them up, you know, like it does. And like, and it's like, it's funny because you're like, oh cool, they almost had it, you know, like they almost had it. And I mean, it's almost worse for the Empire because they do have it, and then they just lose it. You're just like, yep, okay.
Yeah.
Lost Empire.
But yeah, I do agree with you that it would have been very easy to just find some way to sneak in some reference to the Death Star, and they didn't.
Yes, thank God. Thank Christ. Now I think, yeah, Leia's good. I think the Luke casting, he looks pretty good. You know, I'm kind of like, yeah, sure. You know, like, it's one of the things, and he doesn't really do much in this series, so it's kind of a, you know, like, thumbs up. Like, yeah, exactly. I don't need Luke stuff if we're doing Leia stuff.
I had seen that, too, where it's like, again, it goes back to that same meme of, like, the horse where, like, the back is well drawn and then the front isn't.
Yeah.
It's just like, Leia in Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke in Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it's like, yeah, as if Luke hasn't gotten enough attention.
right? You're like, all right, it's okay.
God forbid he's not the center of the universe for one project.
Exactly. I kind of like that it was kind of like it's very simple on Luke, you know, like you knew like he wasn't going to die or anything, of course, but you're like, and same thing with, I mean, that's definitely the problem here is of course that this is a prequel of sorts, you know, so it's like there's definitely a lot of stakes that get thrown off here, you know, like where you're just like, well, I know we don't know if those guys exist, but we know the path exists, you know, so these people have to survive somehow, you know, like it's definitely like one of those things where it definitely has prequel-itis. It's not too bad, but because they're able to kill some characters and you feel like, oh, that was sad. They did a good job with that. Yeah, I know. Another Obi-Wan also losing another girl that he was kind of doe-eyeing again. You're just like, Obi-Wan, you know, like you can't keep doing this to yourself, bro.
If you really wanted to impress me, you would have actually made a direct reference to Satine.
I know. I was kind of feeling that too. I think the show saves itself with the Obi-Wan and Anakin fight in just the way that it wasn't referencing Obi-Wan's previous life in a lot of ways, you know, like they just didn't they just weren't talking about it. And I kind of felt like that's weird in an Obi-Wan show, like we weren't getting flashbacks to Obi-Wan, you know, like
I feel like there was a missed opportunity to like incorporate some Clone Wars stuff a little more.
Yeah, definitely.
A flashback, instead of it being in this weird spot where like it's after episode 2 but like before episode 3, but like Anakin's still a Padawan, like why couldn't it have been maybe some sort of like Clone Wars era flashback where maybe we could finally see Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen in those original outfits with the armor?
Oh yeah, I would have loved that, dude. I would have loved that. You're just
I mean, I get the trepidation because it's really just a matter of like they don't want casual viewers to have to do homework.
Yes, of course.
They don't want it's just like, oh, we're sorry you don't understand this. You need to watch this 7-season cartoon like over here.
I don't know if you've seen, but like there's been a real uptick in memes about like when, you know, in 2036 when you have to watch 500 different Marvel movies to understand who Gippity Gop is, you know, like, and you're just like, first off, you're all wimps about that because there's 80 years of comics and people had to fucking remember all that shit. And you got to remember a couple movies. Like,
for
come
better
on.
or worse, it's just it's just what the comics are now. So.
Yes, I love that we've kind of evolved into the comics with that type of shit where it's just like, no, yeah, sure. They're expecting you to know so much in movies nowadays. I saw Jurassic World. We won't do an episode on Jurassic World probably because Sean's not going to go see the movie. But like, they expect you to know so much from previous movies when this is obviously a movie where if you didn't see the other 2 Jurassic Worlds, you could probably hop in on. But they still kind of expect you to know things from previous ones. And you're kind of like, damn.
But, I mean,
they're expecting a lot out of you.
Just given the way that second one ended.
Yeah,
like,
right?
That was kind of a world-changing event. It'd be hard to like keep that in a bubble for like new viewers.
That's definitely my favorite parts of the movie is them doing like the dinos running around the real world, but like more it's like literally walking with dinosaur shots where it's like just the dinos by themselves doing shit is my favorite part of the movies. And I'm sure that's why the critics hated it because they hated Godzilla King of the Monsters because there was too much Godzilla in it. I liked that there was fucking dinos doing dino shit by themselves. It's like a Batchelder test, but for kaiju is, do I get scenes where the kaiju just spend time and talk to each other? I don't need, and they don't talk about the plot, or another man. They just talk about they just do dino things. That's
what
cool.
You're telling me is that you should probably just like get a free trial of Apple TV Plus, binge Prehistoric Planet, and then
be like,
Ted Lasso, and then cancel it until Ted Lasso comes back.
And I'll feel really happy. I'll feel real happy about that. But like, yeah, I do. I mean, I grew up watching Walking with Dinosaurs, so it was like one of those things that I kind of really loved those scenes. But besides the point, Jurassic World, it's like they expect you to know so much in that. But and by the way, it's just a quick summary review of that. It's stupid fun. you have to really shut your brain off, but you know, it's got lots of dinos. You know, like what if you went in thinking that it wasn't going to be Jeff Goldblum being like, about dinos, like you were wrong. Like, you know, like, but like, yes, I'm not saying rush out to see it in theaters either, you know, like definitely, you could probably wait till it drops on Paramount Plus or wherever they're gonna fucking put it. Oh no, it's
anyway,
an HBO
back to
Max, an HBO thing, right? Besides the point, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Going back to like the Clone Wars thing, it's kind of weird. Isn't it a little weird, especially given how much it's tied to Obi-Wan? And I get it because we're in that era, like that sort of gap between episode 3 and 4. But it is a little weird that they're pulling a lot more from Rebels than they are from Clone Wars.
Right? You're like, maybe they were like, no, you've seen the Anakin and Obi-Wan scenes there. Now we need Obi-Wan scenes in this era. And you're like, okay. you're like, all right. Like, it is strange though. You're like, there was a whole show where they were the main characters.
Yeah, even to the point where it's not just like new Inquisitors like they did for Jedi Fallen Order, so they can like do their own thing. Like, it's the actual Grand Inquisitor. It's the actual, like, one of the other Inquisitors. I think it's the fifth brother from Rebels.
Brother. Yeah, right.
Like,
okay. I know, it kind of, and I mean, talk about no homework. Yes, they have to, to like really appreciate the Obi-Wan show, I think you do have to see Clone Wars. You do have to see Rebels. Like, like it's like you do have to see these things to understand what's going on, like.
So they're getting more and more. They're definitely getting more and more open to the idea of just incorporating the fucking cartoons and not trying to ignore them.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that was already a thing by the time you got to Mando season 2. And I feel like it's definitely really going to be a thing.
And definitely in Boba Fett with them just being like, here's Cad Bane, like, you're just like, oh, okay. You're like, oh, okay.
That's the latest hot toy, by the way, and he looks great.
Oh, I mean, every hot toy looks fucking great.
And by the time we get to the Ahsoka show, that's basically going to be a Rebels continuation. Because they're just like, it's Ahsoka, and we've already cast Sabine, and there's a rumor about who we're casting for Ezra. So I'm like, and we set up Thrawn. So you're like, I hope you saw Rebels.
But I've also heard that they're going to be doing some Fallen Order stuff live action. Like, actually put that the guy who plays the character in Fallen Order, Cal, he's going to get his own show, is what they're talking about.
That would be so easy.
Right? Like so easy.
The character just literally uses his likeness in the same way they did for Sam Witwer for Starkiller. So it's like, just do it.
Just do it. I know.
And we actually had some of the Fallen Order stormtroopers in Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is cool.
Right. And somebody pointed out to me, and I thought this was actually an interesting point. This is the first time we've seen Obi-Wan fight stormtroopers. Because he kind of ignores them in A New Hope. He kind of like sneaks by them all. So this is the first time we've seen him slice down stormtroopers, and it's a good time, is all I'm going to say. Is him ripping apart stormtroopers. You're like, yeah.
I appreciated the nod to Quinlan Vos.
Yes. I like that.
Just because, like, I like Quinlan Vos, like, fine as a character, but I've read Star Wars Dark Disciple, which is, like, the big book that, like, wraps up Ventress's arc in the Clone Wars that was supposed to be, like, a 6-part storyline that they never got to because the show got canceled. They should have done it for the final season instead of giving us the Martez sisters shit. But whatever.
I do think the cast here, and I don't think we brought it up yet, the cast, other than, of course, Leia, we've already said Ewan McGregor. I think there's been a lot of hate for Moses Ingram. Again, I don't think the hate, I mean, I of course think it's total racism, is people being like, a black man character, I hate it. And you're like, shut the fuck up.
Well, she's black and she's female.
But I do think that they don't, it's like it's a hard role to play here because she's like obviously an anti-hero at one point, like, and it's like, and that is definitely a little rough,
I definitely called it from the first episode though, that little girl in that flashback scene for Order 66 was her. Yeah.
You're like, got it. But I do think that Rupert Friend and Su Kang do play a great Grand Inquisitor and Fifth Brother. And yes, his head isn't as large as the cartoon, but
it's not just the cartoon. It's also not as large as that species of alien was in episode 3. Because
it's
they're from
true.
Utapau.
That's inconsistent. Where when you're saying that, you're like, okay, well, that's really inconsistent, not just like an animation change.
Yeah, it's not like, because that's the thing. Both times this argument has come up, they've both been wrong. Where it's just like, well, the cartoons are super stylized because they try to use that excuse for Cad Bane. I'm like, no, that's just what Duros looked like if you go back to A New Hope.
Yep.
That's just what they were. That's just what they looked like. Same thing with here. It's just like, well, one, it's already like less exaggerated compared to like what they looked like in episode 3. And even then, Rebels isn't as heavily stylized as Clone Wars is.
We only saw like highborn versions,
That's
of it. So maybe it's like there's a lot of species differentiation in Star Wars, and it's like, so maybe that was like the highborns have those weird long heads, and maybe like the force sensitive youth on the streets that get picked up to be Inquisitors are fucking,
a little less like pronounced.
Yeah. It's like Klingons. It's also, for me as a Star Trek guy, I'm like, yo, I've been through 4 Klingon changes. Like, come on, man. It's okay. Let's shake this off. This is not a show ruiner.
Yeah, the Klingons weren't too bad when it's like OG versus next generation, because you're just like, whatever, time skip, fuck it.
Yeah. Fuck it.
But then after that, it like goes all over the place.
I mean, yeah, with Discovery being like, we're just gonna change it again, and you're like, wait.
Yeah, the Discovery ones like look a lot like the ones from the Abrams films, but also like super different too.
Yep. You're just like, okay, all right, guys.
Yeah, I liked Rupert Friend as the Grand Inquisitor. He definitely grew on me. There was a real desire for me that like I don't think there's any reason it couldn't have just been Jason Isaacs.
Yes. No, I also agree with that. I'm like, please, you could have just given me Jason Isaacs. Like, should have booked him. Should have spent the time to do it.
Which would be nice, because we still haven't had like that full transition yet.
Yeah,
we've come closer. Like, the first time we brought a Clone Wars character into like a live action movie was Saw Gerrera. Then we like brought over Ahsoka. Then we're like a step further with Cad Bane because Corey Burton's still voicing him. I want the 1-to-1.
And I think we're taking a step towards that with Tails. I think Tails in Sonic the Hedgehog being voiced by the character from the game is a great step in the right direction, and I think we can keep that fucking going.
But in terms of like Star Wars, I'm waiting for like the 1-to-1 where like not only do they voice them, but they play them and they're on set for them, not just voicing them.
Now the only character that I say, and I think it's the weakest part of the show, I think that it's an obvious time waster, and then it's kind of a weak character once it's introduced, is Kumail Nanjiani as Haji Astri, the fake Jedi. What a waste. Like that, I will give credit to every critic on this. What a waste of time. Like this fake Jedi shit. Like, yes, of course that might happen, but this did not feel fun. This just felt like a big old waste of time. And I know it led to the path, and I know it's like, but we could have done cooler things. That could have been a cool moment instead of what it was, where you're just like, this isn't cool or fun, and it just feels like a waste of my time. That's definitely why I deducted points off my score of this show, because there's great parts of the show, literally cheering at the end fight, like literally so hype. But then there's shit like that where I was kind of like,
I think my main problem with it is
like
that it's probably just I just think it's like miscast, because like I love Kumail.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
He's too genuine a dude in the roles he tends to play that I could believe him as a con artist. I just don't.
Yeah, right. You're just like, I don't know.
So like when you get to like the warmer moments where he's just like, I'm gonna do something right, it feels more right just because that's usually the types of character he's playing. I can't buy him as like a sleazy dude.
Yeah, I think they could have gone with an older gentleman too, like maybe an older veteran actor, and that would have been more fun for that role, like where it's like an obviously older, wiser man instead of like Kumail, like you're kind of like, you're like, I don't know about that one. I think he's funny in the role, but it's still kind of that's the worst part of the show for me. That's my big complaint about the show, is that slow down in episode 2 and going into 3, where you're kind of like, this is a slow down, guys. This is a pacing problem, you know, where it just drops the fucking movement of the plot to like sit aboard ships, you know, like you're kind of like, you know, like you're like, oh, come on, guys, let's move along. We only have 6 episodes. Like let's fucking go. Like that's the thing. I like this show, but I almost think it could have gone more balls to the wall with like a lot of it, you know, like, and they do restrain themselves, and I appreciate that, but also they waste time with some like added characters that you're just like, the Star Wars universe is full of characters that you could have put in these roles, and you just kind of didn't, and you made all these new characters.
It's weird what they decide to like choose to pick and what not to pick, and when they decide they need a totally new character. It's so odd.
I do like Reva. I will say, like, I think Ingram is good in the role. It's a hard role because it's an anti-hero, but it works well for the plot of like a hunted down Padawan turning on Vader, you know, like you're like, that's cool, you know, like that's a cool idea, you know, like, and I like what it is, you know, like, but they're also saying now that they might do a whole show with her, and you're just like, I
leave well enough alone.
Yeah, please. Like this feels like when they were trying to do the Cara Dune show before she blew herself up, is that you're kind of like, I don't need that show. You know, like Disney, you can spend a lot of money on things for shows that I feel like I need to watch. Why do you need to make a show that just doesn't feel like I need to sit down to watch it, you know?
Like just the very premise of like Rangers of the New Republic, just like, okay, fine. That's very much, that would have very much been a show. It's just like, I will wait to see like how they try to advertise that, to see if they seem like they actually have something to explore with there. But like trying to give Reva her own show very much speaks to like Echo getting her own show and Hagatha getting her own show over on the Marvel side. And you're just like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, you're like, Disney, no. I get the inclusion. Like, I want inclusion in my shows. I love her in the role here. Because but taking it that step further to spin off into its own show that doesn't feel necessary to the Star Wars plot or universe is something you have to keep a lid on here, because obviously people are going to get sick of this shit. And if you don't make it so that way every time is worth sitting down, you're going to lose a couple shows on people, I think, you know, like that's what's going to happen, you know, like people are going to be like, well, I can miss that one. You know, I can miss that one. I can miss that one.
Because people are already doing that for the Marvel stuff.
Yep, absolutely. And I think we could absolutely get there with Star Wars, and I think we just need to have some restraint on it, you know, like actually, you know, don't hold back a little bit with unnecessary shit, you know, like you're just like, all right, like make it feel necessary, and then we can keep talking. Okay. Basically, what do you have any final thoughts? Do you have any
Oh, I thought we were going to go like more further into like episode by episode. We talked mostly about the first half already.
Already. I thought we kind of went through the plot. I was kind of like, oh no, we didn't go episode by episode, but you know.
With 4, like I do get what you're saying, just like, ooh, underwater base and like sneaking around, but I feel like nothing separates it from similar events in Star Wars that I've seen already and done better. And I think Eddie had posted about this when episode 4 came out. He's just like, I'm enjoying it, but I feel like with this episode especially, do we feel like we've kind of lost the plot here?
Yeah, where it's just like you can feel they're putting off the Anakin Obi-Wan confrontation, which I know is the crux of the show, but it feels like it's putting it off. And I think that's definitely one of the flaws of this show, is that it kind of puts things off until it hits it into high gear with 5 and 6, you know, like, and when it hits 5 and 6, you're like, this show's absolutely
very
worth
much
it. But
a bridge. But it's just one of those things where, like, for a mini series that's only 6 episodes, it's like, what do we need padding for? This should have been tighter.
This should, especially 6 episodes, you know, like, that's the thing, is I feel like the 6 episodes gives them a weird feeling, you know, like, I do want to say that, is that the Disney Plus 6 episode format is kind of damaging to what they're doing on television. You know, like they can go longer. I don't know why they're not going longer. You know, like they can do any format they want, but they've stuck to 6 episodes, and you're like, why?
Yeah, well, 6 for this one. The other ones have been 8.
8, right? 8, and you're just like, I don't like that. Like I do like that I can crush a show. You know, if you're gonna sit down, if you missed it, and you can kind of crush it, but also, it's bad for pacing because they're like, oh, I have to kill some time in these episodes. And you're like, no, you don't. Fucking get to it. You know, like, let's move forward, you know, like, and I
did you
think
like
that... Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, did you like the dead Jedi trophy room in episode 4?
That was, I think that's another important part of this show, actually, you know, is that I was saying you get to see Vader at full power, but you also get to see Vader or Anakin at full, this is going to sound offensive, but full mental illness, like actually like in the throes of his madness, you know, like actually, you know, like a fucking psychopath, you know, like not just a school shooter, but like a fucking one that's put into power and is able to like lead an empire and fuck things up. And
not only was he killing kids, but he kept one of the kids as a trophy.
Yeah, you're like, fuck, you know.
I felt really bad. There was a Clone Wars inclusion there. I don't know if you noticed it.
I did notice that. I was
the
like,
old man.
Oh. Yeah, I was like, oh.
Yeah, the old man who helped Ahsoka get her lightsaber back in that one episode. You're like, oh. But again, it also speaks to like this weirdness about like how much we want to reference Clone Wars, but don't want to reference it.
It's true. It's like, but I kind of like that like if you do want to catch every little thing in this, you do have to see all of Star Wars, you know, like it's kind of like, hey, you know, like there's all these animated shows and they're pretty fucking good. Some of the best Star Wars that ever Star Wars, you know, like.
So just on a pure, just like fanboy level, talking about the final fight.
On a fanboy level, it's badass. On a technical level, it's badass. Like, because it looks great. Like you were saying, it feels physical. Like, you know, like they have to like keep actually bringing the sword around, you know, like, and it's not just like a whip. It's like a very like actually swords coming around. And I like that because I know a lot of people are kind of against the fast quickness of Revenge of the Sith. And that moved on to a lot of other Star Wars content, you know, like that fast, kind of loose lightsaber fighting. And this goes back to very physical, which you kind of get from Kylo Ren too, you know, like that very physical.
The lightsabers in like the sequel trilogy are like very weighty.
Yes.
I'm of two minds about it. I can have both. I like it when it's like fast and whippy and very Revenge of the Sith, only because it's unique to Star Wars and it's a laser. It's not actually a sword. So why would it be heavy?
Yes. But I also, I will say they do kind of go into, Obi-Wan holds up the saber there, and do you notice it kind of looked like the old, drawing sabers or from Rebels too? Like it's kind of very thin and,
like the Macquarie art.
Yeah. I was like, wow, they're actually doing it in live action. Like that it's
so long as it doesn't go to Rebels where it just looks like frail.
Yeah, you're like,
looks brittle. It looks like the laser's gonna snap off.
So as a fanboy, though, you get all you wanted from these final episodes. First off, you get to see Obi-Wan say hello there, which, of course, you know, the whole meme. You know, like, you're like, fuck yeah,
it's
let's go.
But it's also been a thing since Alec Guinness.
Yes, so that's the thing. It's his first line. It's Alec Guinness. It's like he's referencing that in the prequels, you know, and he says it in the first episode, and then he says it again in episode 3. So it's like one of those things that it's like a constant Obi-Wan thing. So he had to say it.
Yeah, and even in that scene at the end of this, like he's definitely dialing up the Alec Guinness when he says it this time.
Hello
just
there.
Like, hello there. Come here, my little friend.
So good. And you get to see hello there. You get to see Darth Vader and Obi-Wan fight. It's a good fight. You get to see Obi-Wan at full power, which they were kind of like playing up, you know, like, and
it's like, it's definitely a solid rematch, and I'm glad they didn't go ridiculous with the scale, because just in terms of importance, you don't need to try and recreate like Revenge of the Sith. We don't need like lava or anything like that.
Yeah, I
Especially
kind of
just
like
something-
the just solid rock shit going on here. And they
Yeah.
kind of already did the fire earlier with him being dragged through the fire, so you're like, all right.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like,
because
they
like
kind of did it.
the Anakin and Obi-Wan fight in Revenge of the Sith is probably my favorite fight, but I get the arguments that it goes on a little too long.
Yeah, but it is
does
good.
get
It is
ridiculous.
good. It's definitely one of my favorites too. But of course, I think it might be Last Jedi Ballroom, or I mean, any of the hallway scenes are very fucking badass recently. You know, like any of the hallway scenes. You're like,
Well, I'm
all
talking
right.
about like one-on-one duels.
Yes, one-on-one.
The hallway stuff is just like a massacre. Just like just like plowing through, cutting through things like butter.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think there's a place for both. Like you can have it be more heavy, and you can have it feel like actual like weighted swords, and you can have it be like super high speed kind of anime bullshit. Like I can have both.
yes,
I
absolutely.
lean a little more
but
towards the light, just because you have the advantage of it with such a unique weapon that isn't
So-
technically a traditional sword.
my argument though is the for this it feeling weighty is that it feels like a transition point from the anime high action of Revenge of the Sith to the very classic sword fighting that they're doing in A New Hope, which like you kind of have to get to that point. And I kind of like that this is like a kind of mix of that, where it feels like a real sword fight at points, but we get that high energy fight sequences.
Yeah,
you know,
it's the difference between like this was like the golden age of the Jedi when they prospered and they had like the proper training versus just like Obi-Wan taught me how to use a lightsaber in a day.
Yeah,
And
right.
I just had to learn myself for the rest of that point.
Exactly, because like that's definitely one thing about Luke is like, you know, he's going out there being like, I'm gonna teach a whole new generation of Jedi. I'm like, Luke, you can't fight, bruh. You need somebody better to teach him.
I think it helps that like you have that scene in Mando and Book of Boba Fett where he's cutting through the Dark Troopers,
right?
And he's like clearly training and stuff. Just like okay, he's getting there.
He's getting there. Right, and they could still play up to Luke being like full power, you know, like in it before the sequel series, you know, like type of shit, you know, like they absolutely still will probably. They're probably gonna build up to that. But besides the point, because this is not that era, is that also for a fan, you finally got to see fucking Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson on screen together as Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, you know, like
for the first time since Phantom Menace.
Yes, and the re-edits, I guess you could say. You know, like when they're like, yes, here's you know, they're like, here's Qui-Gon, we're just gonna shove him in this ghost scene, and you're like, wait, no, hold on. Like you're like,
well, that's never been in anything official.
No, isn't it in the current release? He's in the ghost scenes. Like I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to go watch my copy later, and I'll see. But it's like it's very nice to see them together. It's an actual scene. It's not just like a fucking recut of an old scene or him saying an old line. It's like an actual new scene, and you're like, all right, cool. I do kind of wish we got like whispers of Qui-Gon before, you know, like Qui-Gon was trying to reach him in the earlier episodes, you know.
You mean like Clone Wars?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I feel like we were gonna get like certain hints, and then when the whispers did come in, but it was just old audio from the prequels.
Yeah, you're like
oh,
wait.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was also waiting to hear Liam Neeson just as like Obi-Wan. That's all you needed.
Yeah, right.
Just like, okay, he's there, I can hear him, but I can't quite reach him yet.
Right. Exactly. I would have liked that as it would have added more. Like I know Obi-Wan's like reaching for him, but it would have been nice to be like Qui-Gon's also trying to reach back, but Obi-Wan can't do it. You know.
Yeah,
like,
he's not ready yet.
You know, like and like, you know, like, and that's the other thing about this is that I like this because it feels like a Jedi mission. You know, like where it's like it's like a literal trial. He wasn't ready to fight Darth, but then he gets up to the point where he can, you know, and actually defeat, you know, Anakin per se, you know, like, which I mean, that fight was a lot of fun. I do think it's a little weird that he just leaves him again, but also at the same time, that's totally Obi-Wan, you know, he's just like, is like, I ain't gonna fucking do the blow, you know, like
Yeah.
until Darth Maul, you know, like until Darth Maul, and then he fucking puts him down, you know, like and you're just like, all right,
Just like, enough with this guy.
enough with this guy, get him out. Like, and I mean,
as much
and that's the thing also is that Anakin and Obi-Wan have like this personal connection, so he doesn't want to deal the Death Strike, but with Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, he's like, you killed my master, I'm gonna fucking
as
kill
much
you.
as much as I'm like slightly miffed that they just kind of like stole the thunder from Rebels a little bit with that Ahsoka fight, where like this half of the
Yes.
mask comes off and you see like the one eye, and they're speaking in both like Anakin voice and Darth Vader voice at the same time.
right.
It is very effective, and I love the dialogue in that scene.
Yeah, the sound editing there is pretty fucking awesome. And
And
yeah,
I also
love
think
the
like
dialogue.
Hayden's really bringing it in that scene too.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of like, I was like, this is why you hired Hayden Christensen in the first place, is because he could bring that anger that like Darth Vader pissed off, and like, and then he doesn't get to do it much, you know, like. So
I did
like, okay.
almost get mad at like a defense of it though, because I had a friend. She's also a huge Star Wars fan, and she was like, "Yeah, but it was the other side of the helmet." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that makes it completely different."
That's great.
It was the different side of the helmet. It's totally different.
It's actually super funny. I do love seeing him in his throne room, you know, like, and actually going to his throne room. That's also the reason why I liked 4 too, is that it felt like, you know, we're going to Vader's palace, which we don't get to do, you know, like, so you're like, all right, cool, I'm down, you know, like, let's go to Vader's weird ass killing palace.
But I also feel like the less I see, at least from this point onward, of like Vader's palace, I think will be the better, because I'd rather it be like shrouded in mystery and have it be like this ominous place. Just like, this fucking psycho really built his palace in the place where he got burnt to a crisp. There's a great meme going around where it's just a picture of him sitting on his throne, and it's just like a comment that says, "This house is haunted because I live here."
I love that. That's awesome. And yeah, I think that it's like, I already said it, it's like at his full madness, you know, like, so it's like really cool that dialogue of him being like, I killed Anakin, you know, like, and like, and being just like this like thing of hate, you know, like, and I also love it because it also is a great scene because it ties into Return of the
betrayed
Jedi too, you know, like,
yeah. It's like, Darth Vader betrayed and murdered your father.
Right, that too. It also covers that line where you're like,
yeah,
that's Obi-Wan's like, that's what he told me. He told me he killed him. Like, you know, like, I didn't lie.
That came from his mouth. He said it.
I didn't say it. He said it. But like, yeah, episode 5 and 6 are a lot of fun. We get some great looking action. Of course, we get the return of the Grand Inquisitor, which, like, you knew was happening. I was like, I immediately called it when I first saw the episode. I was like, there's either he's a thing that can be cloned constantly, but that's weird too, because they're cloning for sensitive people and they have the Force, and you're like, oh, that's weird. But like, them just being like, yeah, he survived that. You're like, all right, tough motherfucker. Like,
yeah, Maul
also,
survived
it sounds
worse.
like it sounds like the dark side of the Force can just heal shit, and you're like, but why? You're just like, but why can they just heal shit? Like,
or like, it's less like that, and just like they can just sustain themselves until they actually get like help.
Right.
Like, I'm so angry that man is too angry to die.
Yes,
it's like that old. Yeah. I do want to say that fight that Reva has with Vader is actually really sick too.
Yes, I actually really do like that
Vader
fight.
Just no-selling her the entire fucking time, just like, you're fucking
He doesn't
nothing.
even break out the saber, dude. That was my favorite part, is he's like, starts out the fight and is like straight up samurai, like just dodging this shit. And you're just like, holy shit.
I actually audibly like cheered when there's that big like lay my dick on the table moment where he takes her Inquisitor lightsaber from her, pulls it apart, and still just like, here.
Yes, here you go. Here, I'll give you a shot, and then like,
yeah,
and then when he gets the 2 sabers, you're always like, Anakin's dual wielding, somebody's gonna die. you're like, oh shit. Like,
I will say that too. The Inquisitor lightsabers were done fairly well.
Yes, for something
it helps that
so
no one
goofy. So goofy. Thank God no one flew
Yeah.
away though. Thank God.
I'm glad.
Like that's the thing is they're pulling for Rebels, but they learned from Rebels that like no, we're not gonna just fly.
What they
away
really
with
learned
our
from was
Inquisitor.
Fallen Order, because the Inquisitors are in Fallen Order, but they don't helicopter, and they actually
Thank God.
make those twirly little lightsabers look like grounded, just because
Nice.
Fallen Order is so like photorealistic and
Yeah.
not like aiming towards animated. So
Exactly.
they kind of lean more towards that. Thank God no one helicoptered.
Thank God. It's definitely one of those things like it's like Thor spinning his hammer and throwing off. It just makes me giggle every time. So it's like you're like, please don't do this. Don't fly away. But yeah, they made him look really good. I think all the lightsabers in here, I already said it, look amazing. I think it's such a step up. Yeah, that practical lighting in there is just amazing. And really like it gives these great shots of like Obi-Wan all lit in blue and Vader all lit in red, and then the cross section, you're like, fucking love that shit. Fucking beautiful. But yeah, her fight was just, it was so epic, and like him just not like using a saber until he takes hers is fucking sick. You're like, all right. You're like, he doesn't give a shit. I also
deserve to die at my saber.
I also really love that he just like ripped down, like, I mean, somebody was making the argument. They're like, why did she think she could win that fight? That man just pulled down a starship and ripped the doors off of it. Like, like you're like, why did you think you had this? Like, and you're just like, that's a good point. You know, like, you're like, I don't particularly like her motivation that she just goes, well, okay, I will go kill Anakin's son, you know, like I don't really love that as the final like fight, but I do love Aunt Beru being an absolute badass.
I couldn't tell if, like,
and Owen getting his limp. I really thought that was actually a really great addition to this, is that like you add Owen getting his limp here, and you're like, okay, cool. He was protecting Luke. You're like, oh, that's awesome.
And you get like the nice dad moment of just like, you love the boy, huh? Just like one of your own. He is one of my own.
Yeah, right. I did like that. I was like, and then Aunt Beru being a badass, you're like, all right. Like,
yeah, it makes us care about them a little more, to make it like retroactively more sad when they get gunned down and then burned alive.
When they get vaporized. Really though, yeah, it's like, it's kind of funny that like we've seen them in a bunch of things, but they haven't been very likable. So it was very like it was kind of nice to do this like saving Luke from a dark Jedi type of thing. You're like, all right.
Aunt Beru was always fine, but like Owen was the hard ass.
Yeah.
Just let Luke get it. Just let the boy have his power converted.
I love though that they use the same actors, you know, like that is just cool that like the entire time we've had the same Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen, you know, like not fucking moving, you know, like, and you're like, I love that, you know, like, and they can just age into slowly, you know, like being the original actors, and you're like, thumbs up.
Yeah, especially since Joel Edgerton is a much bigger actor now than he was when Attack of the Clones came out. So it could have been very easy to be like, I don't fucking need to do Star Wars anymore.
No, I like that he's just down for it, you know.
Yeah,
like,
I love that.
It's cool. And you can definitely tell they're like, well, he's a much bigger actor now. We're going to give him a few scenes, you know, like, one thing I did like about this show that was great is that they were able to give this feel of, what the Empire's done to the galaxy, you know, like type of things, like it's like Nazism, it's fascism is fucking done. And have
you been hiding any Jedi?
Jedi? I mean, yes, they were definitely doing that, but my favorite is them catching a ride with what is he, Fleek? What was the character's name that with the truck there? But they like
the star-nosed mole looking dude.
Yeah. That was actually a great scene where they go back and like they see the symbol, you know, he's being all friendly to him, but then he sees the symbol, and then they do the whole like hiding from the Nazis scene of them loading on with the Nazis, and you're just like, okay. So that was definitely like, I think a lot of people were kind of just like, oh, more wasting my time, but I kind of really enjoyed that shit where it was just like, no, the Empire are straight up Nazis, bruh.
Also, you know, that one destitute clone trooper.
Yeah, right.
Where you're just like, oh, great. One, it was cool to see Tamora Morrison play a clone trooper again.
Right. I was like,
which again is just like, let him play Rex in something. Let him play Rex in something.
Let's go.
But
I know I kind of expect, that was another thing, is I know a lot of people were expecting Rex in this, and I kind of I kind of agree with them. That would have been another great way to like work the other shit into this, you know, is having Rex instead of that, I know it worked emotionally that, you know, Obi-Wan fell in love with another lady and then she dies. It's like, you also could have had, which I think he actually did a really great job, as this character. What's his name? O'Shea Jackson Jr. O'Shea. Like, I think he does a great job in this, actually. I think he's a great character, but you could have had that role as Rex, is my first thought.
I could see that.
Like, is that Rex is working with the path and, you know, you run into Rex again. That's what I mean by they didn't. Yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, thank God. But it's one of those things where I was like, that's what I mean by they didn't go balls to the walls with like trying to incorporate all of Obi-Wan into this.
That one destitute clone trooper though was like, it did sort of make me snicker because it's just like, I'm glad the Star Wars universe treats its veterans just as well as we do.
You're like, damn.
What was I gonna say? And even if you didn't want to do Rex to like heavily tie it into Clone Wars, it could have been Cody.
Yeah, right.
Because back in my day, back before the Disney days, like Cody used to be that clone trooper,
right?
And like after Clone Wars, then like Rex sort of became that.
Yeah, and they kind of were like, okay, like, but yeah, Cody was big. Cody was the one everyone knew. You know, they're like,
it was because he was the only one who had like a name. When you got to episode 3, you're like, wait, they have names?
They got names. They got names this whole time. But really, I enjoy this show. I think it's above average. You know, like, I think that this is a worthwhile watch. Does it have problems? Sure. Is it better than most of what's on Disney Plus? Yes, I will say that.
Yeah, I think of the Star Wars shows that we've gotten up until this point, I find this one probably the least rewatchable for me. Like, I've gotten through it. And I mean, I might
watch the final 2 episodes again. You know, I might watch the fight a couple more times. But,
or,
you know.
Well, that's more of a case I'll probably like watch the fight itself on YouTube or something.
Yeah, if Disney Plus is smart, they'll drop that on YouTube so people can just watch that again and again.
That's actually a smart thing that Apple TV does. Not that they drop it on YouTube, but they actually have like key fan favorite scenes just available to watch when you go to the hub where the show is housed.
All right. Well, at least I mean, if it's not a spoiler, I'm for that. You know, like, as long as they're not.
No, it's usually just like favorite funny moments.
Yeah. All right, that makes sense. I did like, another thing I liked about this show is very, because it's Obi-Wan, and they definitely like play up at the beginning of Attack of the Clones all this neon, and I like that they do a lot of neon in this show. You know, a lot of.
I'm just glad that so little of this was on Tatooine. That was my thing.
Yes, absolutely. And this could have been another show on Tatooine. You know, like, and you're just like, thank God we left. You know? Like, thank God we went to other places. Fuck. But overall, yeah, I think this is a better show. Our rating system here on the Warp Shelf is pre-order it, get it now, get it on sale, and nope. Or did we find out? Oh, yes. We also added get it a special edition of it. So, you know, wait around till you get a special edition.
That's like the S tier.
That's like, wow. That was just for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Sorry, guys. No other fucking movies recently is gonna get that fucking rating of wait for the fucking special edition.
Sorry.
Unless something blows me away this year, which I'm totally for. But I think that this is a you know, own it, but it does reach into the wait for a sale. It's absolutely one of those things
that's fair.
You don't need to own this, but if you're a Star Wars head, of course, you're going to want to own every bit of the Star Wars franchise, and this feels now, with the way they kind of slotted so many little holes in here, filled in so many gaps, this feels like an essential part of the Star Wars franchise. And as a Star Wars fan, you should probably fucking own it. You know, is all, you know, like if you're able to.
I would. I think it's good enough to watch and like maybe get on a sale. That's kind of my thing.
Yes, I think so too.
Like it's weird because
good,
I do think
but is it worth
I do think this is overall, and not by a huge margin, but I do think this is overall better than the Book of Boba Fett was. But I
Yes.
probably would sooner rewatch Book of Boba Fett than this.
Because I mean, Book of Boba Fett is more full of fan service, so it's like also, I think it's more rewatchable in that way, where you're like, haha, look at all this fun we're doing and all the different actors that are here, you know, like where Obi-Wan doesn't have that feeling at all, you know, which I'm totally for. I'm for a very serious tone, but you just actually have to, you know, do it instead of two.
I hope Andor like really dives into what I really liked about Rogue One, was just like, I want to see the shady side of the rebellion.
Yeah,
because
right.
Guess what? There's a lot of gray.
There's
a lot of gray when it comes to war, and I'd like the more shady aspects. So I want that, especially since Andor's sort of in this weird place where like I don't want it to come off like it's just padding because it's in between Obi-Wan and Ahsoka.
Yeah, and you're like, we'll see. We'll see. It's one of those things that I'm excited for the show, but I'm not, you know, I'm not talking about it to other people. I'm not like, man, I'm excited for Andor, right? Like, but I was doing that for Obi-Wan. I was like, fuck yeah, Obi-Wan's coming out. Like, give me that Obi-Wan. Put that in my veins. And, you know, I think it could have been better is basically it. It's fun. It's good. It's real solid. I gave it an 8 out of 10 on my fucking rankings. But, like, if we're talking about owning it, I don't know, you know. You don't have to, like, get it on sale, basically, you know, like get it on sale, or if you're a Star Wars completionist, yeah, get it, you know, like, but it must be hard to be a Star Wars completionist now, you know, you got so many fucking different cuts, even just out of Disney. You're like, wait a minute, which cut do I have here? What is this?
I have my despecialized and I'm happy with them.
Yeah, no, that's a great version to have. And you can go back to our Star Wars episode, which is our second episode of the podcast. Go all the way back there and see us talk about some in-depth Star Wars different cuts there.
Revisionist history stuff.
Yeah, and we've pretty much covered everything Disney Plus has come out Star Wars wise. So there's plenty of other content. We did Visions, you know, like and all the other Book of Boba Fett and Mando. So go check out those
Andor's
episodes.
next, Ahsoka's next. We are getting more Visions at some point. That Tales of the Jedi thing is whatever that ends up turning out to be.
I'm totally for and more animated Jedi shows. I'm totally for. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, give me that. You know, even with those things nailed down, it feels very open in the Star Wars universe right now. So I'm excited to see where we're headed, because we also have the High Republic show coming up too. You know,
the Acolyte.
The Acolyte, and like, I mean, I'm excited. You know, like I hope we can have a very bright future for Star Wars, and maybe we can get away with stop doing these single character things now that we've done Solo and Obi-Wan, you know, like, unless you're gonna do Darth Vader, that's the only one I care about. Like, don't
we're still getting Lando,
and you're getting Ahsoka too, so we're still getting Lando. Really? Oh wow. I didn't think that was still in the works. So, you know, you're like, all right.
There was one just called Droids, which I'm like already like,
It's an anime movie. I'm sure it's for kids, you know, like I'm sure it'll be fun. But besides the point, guys, check out those episodes. Check out galaxygeek.com, where all the episodes are in audio form and video form. You know, I also got some Gunpla reviews on there I've been writing, so check that out on there. But also, it's just the home of the podcast. You know, like, it's probably the easiest way to get all of the episodes in one place, unless you're already subscribed somewhere. But also just you know, make the algorithm work. You know, 5 stars on podcast platforms, like the video, subscribe, do the things to make the things work, so we can keep bringing you more good content. Speaking of content, we are gonna do Yankee Doodle Dandy as our 4th of July celebration. I think it's quite fitting for what we're going to talk about. And then we have Blade Runner coming up, and we have a bunch of other things in the pipeline for other episodes. So we have a lot of fun stuff lined up, and we'll kind of hint that out to you guys. We are on a bunch of social medias. We have a Galaxy of Geek and a Warp Shell Facebook page. We have a Galaxy of Geek Twitter. We have personal Twitters and Instagrams. I'm Yep Frank on there.
Mod Graika.
And I have Yep Gundam 2 if you want Gunpla. And then yeah, if we also got Discord that's doing pretty well. It's a lot of fun to go on there. And so if you want the Discord invite, comment down below. I'll send it to you. I think it's in the description on YouTube. But if you want it personally sent to you, I'll personally send it to you. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, we've had a few new peeps come into it.
Yeah, and a DM for the Warp Shelf stickers. I want to send them out to some peeps. So if you are listening to the show and you want some stickers, I'll send them to you. I swear. And guys, thank you for supporting the show. And I hope you have a great rest of your week.
We'll see you next time.